Welcome into episode number 2 of the podcast about Illinois high school basketball. I am your host, Brady Roberts with Hardwood Preps Illinois. With me is good friend, Alex Mielcarz. Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How about you, Brady?
Good, Alex. So real quick, before we get started, tell our viewers what you do and kind of how you got into this position.
Yeah, so I work in the sports information office at the University of St. Francis, and this past year I was brought on with Shaw Media, started covering some football, some girls volleyball, and now into the basketball season, I'm covering some basketball as well, mainly in the Will County and Kendall County areas. So, I'm a young guy, brand new to the business, but, grew up watching basketball in Kendall County, grew up watching, Gordy Kirkman at West Aurora and all those guys. So, I'm used to the area and I'm excited for another year of high school basketball and excited to talk about it with you today.
Well, we're really happy to have you on, Alex. And I mean, this was the first week, a busy week, especially for you.
Yeah.
If you were over at the WJOL at St. Francis, you were on PA. Were you on PA for every single game?
Yeah.
So you probably heard plenty of him. So he's actually got way more basketball under his belt than I do. And with the teams and players we're going to talk about, he's got a pretty good idea. So what we'll do is we'll go through a few teams from the week that we saw that we want to share a little bit about, and then we will transition into a few players that we thought stood out, and then we'll briefly review the past week, some teams that had some good weeks that were expected and some surprises as well. So let's get into it. First off, I was at the Rockford Boylan tournament on Friday and got to see about 3.5 games, I'd say. One of the teams I saw that caught my eye, what really wasn't quite expecting to be as good this early, but I know is always a respectable program, is Rockford Lutheran. They ended up earning a well-earned rivalry game victory against Boylan Catholic, and they were led by a pair of seniors, Vontez Dent and Marquise Haynes. Those guys were a real fun tandem to watch as the game went along, but they also had a real interesting sophomore. His name is Zach Van Blaricom, and it was interesting to kind of see how athletic and how well this group meshed as early as they did. Boylan actually came out shooting fairly hot to start the game. But this is a team I know from based off of sectional pairing, and I know they're a 2A team, that they have a really interesting road, I would say, to the postseason if they can get hot at the right time. And I don't know if I'd really be too surprised to see this team get to a sectional final, possibly a super sectional. I know that they would be more likely than not paired up in the same road as Rock Ridge, who has been to the 2A playoffs in the state finals the last 2 seasons, and they are pre-ranked number 1 by Aaron Britton. So team to keep note, I was surprised at, again, how well they played this early on. And if you're a Crusaders fan, there's a lot to like going forward with this squad. So, Alex, what do you got?
Yeah, so out here in Will County, I mean, we had a really fun weekend, and I'll start with a team that you usually make a trip out for every year, Bradley Bourbonnais. A tough weekend for the Boilermakers. Short 2 to 3 starters the entire weekend. I mean, in the first 8 minutes of the season, they lose their starting guard to a broken wrist. I just stuff you'd hate to see, regardless of the team. But they're again in the middle of it all. Nick Allen, the big, I think he's 6'9", 6'10", a lengthy center. Dropped 28 and 16 on Friday night in a losing effort against Joliet Central. And look, the Boilermakers, I know they're down 2 to 3 starters, but I just don't know if they're going to have the juice that they have had the past few seasons. The Cole brothers are their best shot. Ethan Cole specifically had a respectable tournament, did a good job running the 1 and the 2 for the most part for the Boilermakers. But again, I just don't know if Bradley Bourbonnais is going to be a team that come playoff time is going to make that push that we've expected of them the past few years.
It'll be interesting to kind of see how their road to the playoffs contend, because I know they had a pretty good run last year, and then they ran into Moline, who ended up winning the state championship. So
And part of that's just draw too, like Bradley Bourbonnais. If they get matched up with a few small teams early on and they're able to let their 4 and 5s just go to work, that could turn into a few wins for them down the stretch. You just never know.
Sure, and we'll see how those guys that were missing, see how big of an impact they were, and it's easy to take a lot of stock in the season from good or bad, and overreact at times, like
Yeah,
it's
exactly. I mean,
it's
it's the
very,
first 4 games of the year. Like,
no doubt, no doubt. So
also quickly shout out to all tournament name team Ty Dangerfield, a guard on Bradley Bourbonnais, one of the best names of the entire season I've seen so far.
we need more guys like that. All right. Transitioning to New Berlin, a team that I saw in the championship game of their own tournament. This was my first trip to New Berlin. And for some of the viewers that may not know where that is west of Jacksonville. I'm sorry, west of Springfield, east of Jacksonville. So it's a small town tucked off of, I believe I'm going to mess this up. I think it's 72 that it's right off of. But very cool gym. The Pretzel Dome, they call it Saltyville, and building a new high school, sort of. I think they're renovating and or slowly but surely putting new pieces into it, which is good to see because it is an old building. Let's talk about the team. This was a team I saw last year at the Waverly Holiday Tournament, and they ended up looking pretty much about the same style as they usually play. Very slow pace, patient, defensive possessions, if you're playing against them, are always a pain in the butt. And a pair of forwards that I really liked last year were Gannon Dodd and Lucas Bixby. Gannon Dodd looks like a completely different player this year. Last year, it seemed like he was one of those guys that inconsistently could kind of flash a mid-range jumper, maybe every once in a while, put a few minutes together that were pretty consistent. But again, at the 1A level, if you have some height, rebounding, and being just a physical presence is pretty important. But this guy looked like he had put in a ton of work in the offseason. He was really, really tough to stop on offense. He flashed a little bit of a 3-point shot at 6'4", 6'5", and you're not going to really see too many guys like that at the 1A level that can do that. Very calm, and he lived up to the moment. I mean, they're playing a formidable opponent in route, there's a lot of intense bragging rights, to say the least, that go into that, and he handled himself really, really well. So I'd say this is a team I know that was pre-ranked number 11 in 1A. These guys are a lot better, especially if Gannon Dodd is performing the way that he should be performing, the way he did on Saturday. This is going to be a team that's going to be in the top 10 for most of, if not the whole season. So if you're in that Sagamon conference, they have a real chance to go and win it outright this year. So real fun trip to go see the Pretzels play.
I just love the mascot too. That's an all-state mascot right there. Them and Freeport are the 2 pretzels in the state, right?
Not too many of them, yep. And there's only one Pretzel Dome.
There's only one Pretzel Dome. And I saw the pictures on Twitter. That place looks sick. I think your caption said something like, I don't know how many schools play under a dome. I think that might be the only one.
Well, and it's interesting too, because the school they were playing against, Route, is actually one of the other 3 that play in a dome, ironically. So
nothing new for them. Out here in Will County, we had Romeoville has been a team that we've come to expect to dominate the WJOL tournament the past 2 years. The championship appearance for the past 2 seasons, lost to Lamont last year. This year, another trip to the championship, a loss to Joliet Central. But again, Coach Mark Howard and his staff have done a great job getting this team ready to go. They are fast. They are fun. They're aggressive defensively. They play with a lot of juice. I mean, I don't think I heard a louder sideline all year long and a louder fan base outside of Joliet that was in the gym all week long. So kudos to the Spartan Faithful that came out. In terms of the numbers, though, the team's shooting 51% from the field through the first 4 games of the season, 33% from 3. That's 21 of 63 from beyond the arc, and they're averaging 65 points a game. Those numbers play. I mean, really, even in their championship game, they didn't play poorly. Joliet Central made the big shot. That was the difference. So the Spartans didn't have a bad showing by any means. EJ Mosley Jr., TJ Lee, 2 guards that to keep an eye on, a sophomore, Mikeese Johnson. This kid, he does not look like a sophomore. If you walked up to this kid in the gym after the game, you would think he's a senior. He's built, he's filled out his frame. He's a 57% shooter from the field, not big from beyond the arc, just 1 of 4 attempts, but he's averaging 12 a game, pulling down 3 boards. The kid is going to be something to look at here over the next 3 years of his career this year. And then of course his junior and senior years. And then the big Adam Walker, long, lengthy kid, averaging just 6 points. So I'd like to see a little bit more from the 6'9" center. I mean, this kid's got a wingspan that goes to below his knees. It is ridiculous. The way this kid can grab the basketball. I showed off the dunk plenty of times. He's not afraid to rip down the rim. but I would just like to see him be a little more aggressive going to the basket when he's not trying to finish off a dunk, when he's going through contact, that sort of thing. I'd like to see him be a little more aggressive. And I think that would be something that takes Coach Howard's team over the top.
And that'll be fun too to add a squad last year that did lose a little bit to the transfer portal. It's good to see them bounce back early on and have a good showing, because it does kind of take a little while to mesh, with that newer group.
Yeah, and I don't think, chemistry is an issue at all. I mean, this team was chest bumping from the get-go. It didn't matter if it was a 3-point game or a 15-point game, as they had a few blowout wins early on in the tournament. These guys were together, they were fighting. And like I said, that bench was by far the most vocal out of any of the teams at the JOL tournament.
Love to hear that from the Spartans. Can't wait to go see them this year. My next team is the team that ended up losing to New Berlin in the championship. That was Route Catholic. This is a team that lost quite a bit from last year. And it seemed like there was a ton of youth, a lot of sophomores that were in a position pretty early on in the season, hostile environment. And I thought they handled themselves extremely well. Nolan Turner, Bryson Mossman, I know Bryson Mossman for sure got some time last year with the Rockets, but this is a group to be really, really high in for a 1 to 2 year period, where it'll be interesting to kind of see how quickly they get on schedule. Obviously, next year would be the year to go and kind of play it like it was this past season, where they were pre-ranked. I can't remember if they were number 1 or if they were number 2 pre-ranked. Whatever it was, this would be a season to kind of get ready to take that next step. Because I'll tell you what, they played hard. They were down, I think, as much as 20 at one point and cut the lead down to a 4 or 5 with less than 3 minutes to go. In a pretty hostile environment there in New Berlin. So this is a team I would really be excited to see how well they start playing. I know the Waverly Holiday Tournament will be a good test for them. And then they also will play in the Winchester Invitational Tournament, which are 2 back-to-back really tough tests for them. So it is going to be fun to see how the Rockets play going forward.
And to round out my teams, Joliet Central, this is a program that has been down for a while. You can attest to this more so than I can. But I mean, for a gym as historic as they have, and a school and a city as historic as they have, it's just been a long time since they've had a program that I or anyone else in the area has been this high on. And I tell you what, through 4 games, this team is so much fun. And I don't know what the playoffs are going to look like, or, I don't even want to talk about what their sectional would look like. I just want to talk about how much fun this team is. I mean, they are out running. They're hitting the outlet pass and they go. I mean, they are fast. They are fun. They shoot the transition 3, which is something you don't see many coaches let their kids do in high school. But if you're open and you kick it out to the guy, they want you to make that shot and to take that shot. And the thing is, they're making that shot. They're shooting 39.7% from beyond the arc through 4 games this season, led by Jalen Murphy, who's 12 of 24. When is the last time you saw a high school player hit 50% from beyond the arc? The kid is so confident. Some of these threes are from way downtown. We're talking NBA range threes. Coach Larry Thompson and company have just done a great job, and they've put themselves in a position to compete for an SBC East title. By the way, on Saturday, that was their first WJOL tournament title since 2015 and the third since they became Joliet Central. So a big moment for the program. And I tell you what, the crowd came out too. I talked about the Romeoville crowd. The Joliet Central crowd was right there with them. I mean, you could tell these fans and these locals have just been craving for a basketball team to get behind. And now finally we have a reason to go out and to go watch, some basketball in one of the greatest gyms in the entire state.
Good to see some juice being added to that Southwest Prairie East.
Yeah, geez, it is. I mean, you talk about Romeoville, Joliet Central, Joliet West, we haven't even talked about. Those 3 are really, I think, the 3-headed monster of the conference. And then in the West as well, I mean, this is a little bit off topic. You're talking about Oswego East, West Aurora kind of duking it out there. So, the SPC is not necessarily a strong basketball conference by any means, but the East race is going to be a lot of fun, at least between those 3 teams. And in terms of players, I really quickly want to hit on Jamarco Holman. He's an undersized guard, but he runs the one fantastic. He is not afraid to throw his body, get contact, and go to the line. Shot 12 free throws this weekend, averaging 14 points a game, shooting nearly 70% from beyond the arc on 13 attempts. He's made 9 of them. And of course, Jalen Murphy, who I already talked about, averaging 14 a game with his 50% from beyond the arc. I mean, this team, they don't have size. Everyone's no taller than 6'3". They might have a 6'4" in there. But I tell you what they make up, what they lack in height, they make up for in grit.
That's awesome. It's been a while since I've been. I think the last time I went to Joliet Central was when they were really rolling there in
Yeah.
2000 and what was that? 2017, 18, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I tell you what, you're going to want to circle the Romeoville game again. Romeoville's Joliet Central. Make the trip, folks. It's going to be awesome. They played a 3-point game in overtime. And now, granted, some Romeoville faithful will say that a phantom foul is what allowed Joliet Central to force overtime and then eventually win. But it was still a great game nonetheless. And I'm really excited to see what those two are able to put together in the regular season.
First of 3 meetings. Those two are going to get to know each other a lot. All right.
Yeah, I hope it's chippy too, because it was real chippy on Saturday night.
All right, let's move right along. Let's briefly touch on South County, a team that was playing in the 5th place game against North Mac. It's the New Berlin tournament. For those of you who've never heard of South County, it is actually a co-op between Waverly and Franklin. They joined, I'd say about 10 years ago is when they made the merger. But this is a team that isn't really talked about a whole lot. And as far as their personnel, they're senior led. Noah Lyons, Trevor Colwell are two of their top guys, but this is a really tough team to play. If you're looking to play slow, they are going to dictate the tempo. They are going to give you a massive headache on defense. They will score in transition, and they also look for the good shot as well. So it's one of those teams that doesn't have the most height when it comes to that Springfield area. But they are going to be a real force in that conference. I know the other top team that they have to play is Calvary, and they've got a real fun duo. But they will be playing, I think that's January 19th. So I'd circle that date if you're looking for a potential conference championship. That's the one to go to. But South County should be a lot of fun. They're also competing in that Waverly tournament. I actually think 7 out of those 8 schools that were in the New Berlin tournament are competing at Waverly. So good, real fun preview to see how this kind of shakes up, and will definitely matter once it comes down to seeding. But lot to like if you're a Vipers fan this year and for the years to come. You can definitely tell that there's a real good presence there for the starting 5 and the guys that come off the bench. Great fan base too as well. They're always turning out for those games. Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
No, I was just gonna say I love when small schools show out in big ways. There's nothing better than walking into a 1A, 2A gym and just seeing the place packed. And I saw your pictures from New Berlin. I mean, the line was out the door. So just an awesome atmosphere, it sounded like, and I'm hoping I'm able to make the trip here the next few years if I'm not, tied down to the WJOL tournament for the rest of my life.
It's weird too. So most schools have student sections, so their entire fan section won't start chants. They'll start clapping, like pattern chant. It's interesting. And they'll do that on every defensive stand. It's Again, there's not really a lot of cheering. It's mostly just clapping in different It's really fun. You don't hear anything like that in the Chicagoland area. So yes, it's very unique as well. So all right, you got one more, Alex? Or
no, I'm good. I'm ready to talk about some players. Do you want me to just jump right in?
Here. I actually got one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'll briefly talk about the highly anticipated Thornton Richwoods game. So
there you go.
We know both these teams are good. They're 3A ranked number 4, number 3 to start the year. Both of them have the big transfers: Morez Johnson for Thornton, Lathan Somerville for Richwoods. And I think the big question was not necessarily like if they're going to be good, it's how good they're going to be. And this was a game that personally, I think if Somerville did not get into as much foul trouble as he did, I think the outcome might have been a little bit different in this one. Thornton ended up winning the game by a possession. And again, time just kind of ran out for the Knights. But the personnel, it will be interesting to kind of see how quickly this meshes. Morez Johnson obviously is a transfer. Mayo Swansea is another transfer for Thornton. And then Isaiah Green is another transfer. And those guys look pretty good together for the opening week. Obviously, there's still some work to be done there, making sure we're all on the same page. But another guy I'd like to highlight too is Chase Abram. I mean, he's a guy that came off, and I think he ended up scoring 23 points pretty late in the game. He started to turn it on. But it's good to kind of have multiple options for that squad. I mean, I think they're going to be a real headache for a team like Metamora if they have to meet them at the state tournament time. And then same thing for Richwoods. Tavy Smith was another kid that seemed to really take over when Somerville wasn't in the game. And he really kept him in it the whole time. So I like these two going forward. They're going to be good. Again, it's just figuring out how quickly these two teams are going to mesh with the chemistry. But I would not be too concerned. It's not really a matter of if they're going to, it's when they're going to. So a lot to look forward to when it comes to two of the top 5 3A teams in the state. So let's transition into a few players that we enjoyed watching. Real quickly, I got to see a sophomore point guard. His name's Jake Love. And then this is when I jumped into seeing the St. Charles North Freeport game at Boylan. It was probably like midway through the second quarter when we got there. And I'm not sure if this kid started the game or not for them. And I know he's had a couple brothers that have played in the North Star organization before, but I really like this kid. Doesn't turn the ball over. Really, really smart with making sure he's in the right spot at the right time. He's got good range from behind the arc. Kid's only 6'1", and he's definitely going to grow a little bit more. And I know this is a program that has struggled down the line to really find some consistent scoring and just some consistency with the program. And I think Tom Poulin's got a really good one in Jake Love. So fun kid to watch. That's going to be in a really, really loaded Duquesne conference this year. It'll be interesting to see how this kid evolves throughout the season.
Yeah, for me, one of the guys that you have to bring up the MVP of the tournament that you're at. WJOL, that MVP was Zion Castira. Scott Slocum, the voice of WJOL, he introduced the award saying as some of the best players, not only in the Joliet area history, but in Illinois history, have received this award. How true that is, I'm not sure, but Zion Castira is certainly a darn good player. Averaged 15 and 8 from the guard position. Not much of a 3-point shooter, but he can attack the rim and finish. He got quite a few and ones that were just improbable. Throwing the ball up, spinning it off the glass, and just watching it go through nylon. This kid was not afraid to put his body on the line all week long. 23 of 39 from the field, played over 100 minutes in the 4 games. The kid was just not afraid, and I tell you what, he has one of the best afros too in the entire state of Illinois. So that's just icing on top.
Love it. This next kid is someone who's more well known, I'd say, towards the central part of the state, but for everyone in the Chicagoland area who's probably never heard of this kid. His name's Sebastian Hill. He is a senior small forward, and he goes to Meridian out of Macon. This kid transferred, I believe, from LSA, was what it used to be called. Now I think it's Unity Christian. Unity. I don't know. A school, a smaller school.
Unity something.
Yeah, so it's a smaller school in Central Illinois, but he's at Meridian now. This kid is really important to this squad. He can shoot it from all different parts of the floor. He's calm, he's cool, he's really, really good at getting the others involved. But I'd say for the Hawks going forward, this is the real centerpiece, and however Hill does will kind of dictate how the Hawks go. And he was going in the game that I saw him play. He ended up putting up 10 points in the first 4 minutes against Triopia, and it seems like he's averaging about mid-20s pretty consistently. But this is a kid that's definitely gonna kind of dictate how the Meridian Hawks go about this season and how deep they make a postseason run. So Sebastian, man, dude, you're fun to watch, man. I really appreciated seeing you in person, because I know I've seen you online a lot. So you keep doing your thing, man. Enjoy your senior year.
I mean, I'll give you credit as well. You make some of these trips to see kids that I'm just fine watching the tape at home. I'm not as dedicated as you driving down to Central Illinois to watch some of these kids play, but you know what? The trips are more than worth it from what I've heard. Back up here in Will County, a name that I think you all should keep in mind come all area team time, DJ Porter Jr. He's the ideal 3 for just about any team in the state. The kid is perfectly sized. He's filled out his frame, but he can get up, very mobile, averaging 14 a game, pulling down 5 boards, a 50% shooter from the floor, 20 of 40, 5 of 17 from beyond the arc. But I mean, this another kid, not afraid to drive to the basket and finish at the rim. He's not afraid of contact, and he initiates quite a bit of it. He went for an unbelievable dunk attempt. This was like NBA style, one leg up, the knee into the kid's chest, like poster type material. He threw it off the back iron, but I mean, he was inches away from highlight reel. I think they also called a player control foul on the play too, but if he had finished it, the roof might have blown off the place. They were like, minute left in a 15-point game, and he just went for it. He was an all-tournament team selection here at the WJOL tournament. A lot of fun to watch. I mean, just another one of the many athletes that Romeoville has at its disposal. I'm really excited to see what he's able to put together this year with some of the weapons he has around him.
All right, so my next guy is someone who's I've never heard of him, and I'm sure you guys have never heard of him as well. So his name is TJ Seals. He's a junior wing. He's about 6'2", I'd say 6'3", and he goes to Johnson. It's a charter school in Chicago. It's in the Noble League, and this is a team that is very raw, very athletic, quick. I don't know how many wins they're going to rack up. I know they're a 2A team. And I know their road might be tough come playoff time, but TJ Seals is a guy that when he's rolling, the rest of the team is rolling. He dropped back and he could drop some threes from longer range. Not afraid to attack the hoop. And he tries to get everybody involved too. He's one of those guys, even when he's not in the game too, like you can tell he's locked in the whole time. And I know this school really will never probably get a lot of media attention, but I just wanted to point this kid out. If he has any ambition of going and playing any college basketball, he's definitely got the tools to do it. But he's also got a full rest of the season and next season to develop into a pretty dangerous player who's no one's talking about right now. So really fun to watch TJ Seals from Chicago Noble Johnson.
We've talked about a lot the big scorers, the guys that, dominate the game. I'm going to bring up a bench player here, a role guy from Lockport, kid by the name of Anthony Cosi. He does one thing and one thing only, and that's the spot up three, but he does it well. This kid, he is Kyle Korver in Illinois high school basketball. You put him on the wing, you throw him the ball, he shoots it, and 38% of the time he makes it. That's what this kid does. Very athletic, averaging 10.5 a game off the bench. Only had one start all week, averaged that 10.5 from the bench, and he hit a few threes late in a ball game that nearly brought Lockport back to a comeback victory. I believe it was against Lamont, I want to say. I could be wrong there, but Lockport was trailing late. Cosi, comes off the bench, nails 2 threes from the wing with about 2 minutes to 90 seconds left and made it a ball game again, made it a 1-possession game. And you know what? Sometimes role players like that are the heroes you need in type ball games. So I'm really excited to see if he's able to work his way into the starting lineup. And quickly, while we're on the topic of Lockport, Logan Cooper, he's the leading scorer for the Porters, 11.5 a game. 20 of 49 from the field. Not a big 3-point shooter, but he will throw them up. It just hasn't quite started to have them fall yet. Part of he's a very aggressive defender. That's what I really liked about Cooper was his ability to be successful in the full court press and force a whole lot of turnovers all week long. And then that was what the Porters and first year coach Dave Wilson did all week long, was force turnovers. And Logan Cooper was a huge part of that in the backcourt.
That's good to hear, especially since that team lost a lot from last year, including the coach. So
yeah. Cooper had 12 steals on the week. That's a good week at the office, I'd say.
Absolutely. All right, let's run through the week real quick. Point out some teams that had some good weeks. Mount Carmel, the Caravan, they went out at the Grant Mundelein tournament. Brother Rice wins pretty big at the RB Thanksgiving tournament. De La Salle takes down St. Ignatius at the first ever De La Salle St. Ignatius Thanksgiving tournament. DePaul Prep wins pretty handily at the Battle of the Bridge against Niles North. Fenwick, they get the 1-point victory over West Aurora at the Hoops for Healing over at OHS.
I tell you what, that West Aurora team, they led late in that second half. They let it slip through their hands. That's a game that they very easily could have and should have won.
It's good to see that the Blackhawks are playing at a higher level than they did last year. So
yeah, and first year head coach too. Again, I don't have the name off the top of my head. But yes, that's right. He's, from what I heard from the people I knew down at the tournament, he's done a great job so far. Getting the Blackhawks, where they need to be, kind of just letting his players play, not trying to micromanage anything, and just kind of letting his athletes be athletes, make plays for them.
Once a Blackhawk, always a Blackhawk. All right. Glenbrook South has a really good week at the Palatine Thanksgiving tournament. That was a loaded field. Glenbrook North takes down St. Pat's. Those two actually will play each other, Glenbrook North and Glenbrook South, on Friday night. I'm thinking about going to that one.
Make the trip.
That will be in Northbrook.
Mm-hmm.
New Trier will, New Trier takes down Loyola, and they beat Lake Forest for the championship. Aurora Christian rolls at Westminster. Glenbrook North is the top Glenbard out of the 4 Glenbards that played in that opening week tournament. Geneva, St. Francis, and Downer South all have a good first week at the inaugural Geneva Thanksgiving tournament. It seems like they traded off wins and losses between the 3 of them. and beat up on the rest of the field. Wabansie Valley takes down Batavia for the title game there.
The Warriors are my pick for the DuPage Valley. I just want to get that out there now.
Ooh,
I like the Warriors in the DuPage Valley.
interesting. That is another conference that is going to be very fun to watch this year. You hear it here first. Alex Mielcarz has Dub V to win to win the DVC. Bennett, they dominate at the St. Charles East Thanksgiving tournament, one of the oldest Thanksgiving tournaments in the state. Marist, they take down Andrew at Eisenhower. Huntley wins the first of many games that they're going to see against Fox Valley Conference opponent, Crystal Lake South. McHenry, big shocker. They ended up winning the Woodstock tournament against Canelan. Northridge Prep, they win their own Thanksgiving tournament, and they have to finish it off against Vernon Hills, a real scrappy team, much bigger size than they are. Northridge Prep is a team I'd like to go and see at some point this year. Fun 2A team that got ranked in the top 5. LaSalle Peru is another big upset as they win the Ottawa tournament. They ended up beating Pontiac, which is a team that got bumped up to 3A this year. The Little 10, they earned 3 titles. Serena wins the Seneca tournament, defeating the host Irish. Earlville wins theirs, and Indian Creek starts off 4-0. Prospect goes unbeaten at St. Viator against some pretty tough competition there. Rolling Meadows, they were right back where they left off last year, even after losing a bunch, and they beat Fenton at the Fenton tournament.
That's just one of those programs you expect to show up every year now. They're IHSA blue bloods at this point.
Tell you what, first year without the Christies, they don't care. Mustangs are rolling. Schaumburg, they roll at Ridgewood. They ended up winning 4 games there, defeating Naperville Central. Hoffman Estates takes the first 3. Diet. They've already played 7 games. You know that?
Yeah, I don't know how that's legal. There's no way.
Well, they somehow did it, and they won 6 out of the 7. So,
all right.
Tell you what, good for them. Good for them. I think they were at Rock Island for the last 4, so going all the way up to the Quad Cities to try to earn all 7. Beecher, they roll over at Coal City. They defeat
33 points for McGinley.
Yep. Aiden McGinley. Keep an eye on him this year. He's a real fun player. Oak Lawn beats Crete Monee at the Revis tournament. We already mentioned Thornton taking down Richwoods, and they ended up going undefeated in Boylan. As Alex mentioned, Joliet Central wins the WJOL in overtime against Romeoville. HF, they're the kings of the Chicago Heights Classics. They take down Bloom at Bloom. Bolingbrook, they had a real fun week over in Decatur as they take down Manual, and they beat Decatur MacArthur. Sounds like they had a late comeback in that one. So good for Bolingbrook to get off to a solid start. Lincoln Way East.
SPC team Bolingbrook.
That's right. Lincoln Way East takes care of business at Lions. Stag, a team that really struggled last year, they pick up 4 wins in their own tournament. Addison Trail, they captured the title over at Elmwood Park. Let's jump to some of the out of the Chicago area results. Macomb, they are way too much to handle as they go 5-0 at Bushnell. Tri-Valley, a little bit of a surprise here, maybe, as they beat St. Thomas More and claim the title. Waltonville, team that I'm sure a lot of people have really never heard of a whole lot about, and they ended up taking down Christopher at the Christopher Thanksgiving tournament.
I can attest to that, not hearing about them.
It is a very small town right near Carbondale, so they've got, sounds like a pretty big window for this year and next year. They have a big that is really, really solid. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I'm sure we'll be talking about him very soon. Newton, they roll over at Cumberland as they end up taking down KC Westfield. Sherrard takes 3 at the DMAC tournament. Farmington, they claim the Fulton County title. Moline and United Township, they go undefeated over at Galesburg. Rock Ridge, they ended up just squeaking by Rock Falls at the Geneseo tournament. Lexington, 1A team, knocks off top 2A team Prairie Central at Gibson City. O'Fallon, they roll at the Bowl in Jacksonville as they get 3 wins there. Olney, this is a big one. They shocked T-Town in the pool play game, and then they end up winning the title against Lawrenceville at the Capital Classic. Mount Zion, they come out on top at Lincoln. Clinton takes down Auburn and Mount Pulaski. San Elmo Brownstown edges South Central. Sullivan gets 3 wins at Neoga. New Berlin, they get a tough victory against Route in Saltyville. Newman Central Catholic beats South Beloit at the Oregon tournament in the championship. Tremont wins a big one at the Peoria Heights Brinfield tournament. Pittsfield, they end up winning out at the Saukey Invitational. And Quincy, they start out on Thanksgiving night, and they ride that momentum to a 3-0 start. Rock Island, they start out hot in their Thanksgiving tournament, winning all 4 games. Centralia takes the crown over in Roxana. Scales Mound and Galena. They both start out undefeated at the Scales Mound tournament. Bismarck Henning, they roll and win the Topper Classic over at Danville Schlarman. Sterling, they end up beating Burlington Central. Burlington Central ended up knocking off Yorkville in the semifinal game, and the Golden Warriors beat the other top-ranked 3A team at Sycamore. Mount Vernon beats Triad for the title at the Triad tournament. Westland, they shocked Columbia, and they ended up taking the crown at their own tournament. Big one from the Deep South, as Massac County ends up taking the title against Vienna. And then Riverdale, they start out hot 5-0 over at Wethersfield. That is the week wrap. Alex, anything else you wanna add on the first week?
Yeah, I'd like to throw out that 2 hours ago, O'Brien posted his updated Super 25 for basketball. Oswego East cracked the top 25. Naperville North cracked the top 25. So some local schools, at least, and Joliet West is at number 20. So Bolingbrook, future SPC. So I'm going to count that as 3 SPC teams in the top 25. Don't you ever talk down on SPC hoops ever again.
They're relevant. And if, for you guys that don't know about Michael O'Brien, he does a great job with the Sun Times. Him and Joe Hendrickson run another podcast, No Shot Clock. If you've not heard of them, I would go and give them a listen. You can find them on Apple Podcasts for sure. But they've been doing that for, I think this is their, do you listen to those at all, Alex? I think this is their 10th season.
I do think they said it's their 10th. It's either this year's the 10th or next year's the 10th.
Yeah. So they do a great job if you're looking to get a real in-depth touch on what Chicago hoops are like for you guys that are not familiar with the Chicagoland hoops. But I think that will pretty much wrap us up for episode 2. We will be back next week. Little sneak peek. We might have a tournament director of a set tournament that should be really fun this year, giving us an inside look on some of the ins and outs. So stay tuned for that one, if it materializes, hopefully. And we will be back for next week. So that's Alex Mielcarz. I am Brady Roberts, and we will see you next week. Have a good one, everybody.